Okay, I'll start the video first.
Hey, Kowsar.
Hi.
How you doing?
Man.
Happy New Year.
Okay, Justin, you can take over.
All right, thanks very much. And hello, everybody. I think we've got that going there now. Oops. One more try here. That looks better. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm Justin. I'm with Neil Squire Society. I run the Makers Making Change program here. And I've got a few slides, which I'm hoping are on display there for everybody. A little thumbs up or yeah, there you go. Let me know if you can see everything there. Perfect. Thank you very much. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Makers Making Change and sort of what it is, do a little bit of a demo of some of the devices that we have in our library. And we're going to talk a little bit more just about the program and how you can go about requesting devices. That's really the end piece here for us today. So let's maybe minimize that. There we go. Just wanted to start with a short land acknowledgement, just to say that I'm presenting today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. I'm located here in Burnaby, and specifically with the territories of the Coquitlam, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I just think it's nice to be able to kick off our presentation with a bit of an acknowledgement there. So a little bit about me. I've lost everybody here. There we go. There we are. So my background is engineering. Started as mechanical engineer, been in product development for over 20 years now, a number of different industries, everything from mining to power systems to something as fun as ride systems, and now into working with Makers Making Change in the assistive technology or open source assistive technology specifically. And how I landed with Makers Making Change, I actually started as a volunteer myself. I found the organization while I was working in another position and really found the mission aligned well with sort of my values and what I was working on as an engineer, and thought that I could contribute from there. And all of a sudden, opportunity came up that made sense for me to jump in and join the team. So I've been with the organization now just over 4.5 years, and really enjoying the work here and helping support the growth of this organization and the mission. Okay, so a little bit about Neil Squire, in case you're not aware already. The organization Neil Squire Society is started with a basketball player from UVic, and 21-year-old Neil Squire was in an accident, and after the accident had a C1 brainstem injury and had difficulty with mobility and then breathing and speaking after the accident. And his cousin, Bill Cameron, was an engineer and inventor at the time. And thought there must be a better way of enabling Neil to speak a little more easily again after the accident. And what they worked on and what they started developing back at the time, which was early 1980s, was a sip and puff to Morse code device that would allow Neil to sip into a straw and puff into that straw and convert those signals into the dots and dashes of Morse code. This is really the story of Neil Squire Society, and I like telling this one. It's important because it's a bit of the story of makers making change as well. So while this was happening, 40 years ago, we're actually having a party on Friday, which I'll pass on at the end here. The key point is some technology was developed. Somebody saw it and said, "Hey, you know what? I don't need that, but could you do this?" And that then has snowballed into the organization's 40-year history and really centered around development and deployment of assistive technologies. Makers Making Change started about 2016, just about 8 years ago now. And same idea, the original device that was developed was another sip and puff device. It was called the Lip Sync. We're going to see that a little bit later here. Originally started with a Google Innovation Award, and it was all about digital access, really focused around mobile devices. And that device was developed, and that was the first piece of open source assistive technology for makers making change. And other people started seeing that and said, "Hey, that's really neat. I think you could do something else. So what about this idea?" And since then, over the last 8 years, we've grown the organization of Makers Making Change and up to over 218 devices now in the library that we all have access to and provide open source to the community around the world. So looking at where does Neil Squire and where does Makers Making Change fit in together, I think it's really important to kind of understand a bit more about the larger organization of Neil Squire Society. I've got the main kind of groups here. So innovation is the red part of the wheel there in our logo, and that's where Makers Making Change fits under. That's the research and development, engineering, product development pieces that we're working on. Digital literacy is all focused around helping provide the skills and the tools to participate in the modern economy, everything from basic office programs to assistive technology, software-based assistive technology, and working with computers and digital access at that point. We have an employment side of our business and all focused around working with employers and participants looking to either gain employment or improve their employment position over time. And then, of course, assistive technology. And we have a group here that operates under the WorkBC Assistive Technology Services and helps deploy that side of the WorkBC programs. And finally, none of this happens without collaboration like we have today. Participating in a connector event like this, we were over at the Abilities Expo last week as well. Had a great time. We've had a long collaboration with a number of organizations that work in the same space as we do. This is really kind of a lot of the same ideas, but this is just sort of how we all piece our wheel together. It takes everything to fit it together and really build towards the longer term goal of technology, knowledge, and passion, really be utilizing that to empower all Canadians with disabilities. We have a number of partners, again, here who are helping move our work forward across the organization and across a number of programs that we have. Just want to acknowledge that as we move forward here as well. So Makers Making Change. And for those who are in the room here with me today, please, if you have questions, I'd like to think of this as a bit of a conversation as well. So feel free to ask questions along the way, or I can pause, and I've got some time at the end as well, if you have any specific questions about what we're going to be talking about today. This is one of the interesting pieces. This is really the core of why Makers Making Change exists in the first place. The report on assistive technology from the World Health Organization came out a couple of years ago now, and there's a few key findings, but one of the key findings is that assistive technology is often a high-cost piece of equipment and provides a barrier to access for a lot of people, and this is a global statement. So this is a really important piece, and that's the real core mission of Makers Making Change, is to remove or reduce cost barriers to access, and that's really why we've chosen the open source pathway. And when I say open source, what I really mean is that we develop, design, we work with people in the community, both users, clinicians, or makers or designers. And we try to bring those people together. And then the goal is that we develop a piece of technology, and then we were able to distribute that freely through the internet. And our website has been designed all around making all of these designs accessible and available, as well as trying to bring together people to with the skills of makers in order to help provide, again, another pathway that is lower cost compared to some alternative methods of getting assistive technology. At the end of the day, what we're looking to do is just make sure that it's the cost of parts, and that's really all that there is for a price point on our devices. So the three key elements that make up the program is one called the maker movement, desktop manufacturing, and then of course open source, which is the bigger idea here of sharing freely all of our ideas, designs, and information about each of our projects. Now, the maker movement is something that has really started to develop quite actively over the last, we'll say 10 years, even longer, but really has become mainstream now. And things you can find that would help demonstrate this are, 3D printers. If you know what those are, 3D printers are very common now in high schools, libraries. A lot of offices will have them if you're doing any engineering or technology work. And the price of acquiring these have come way down, where you can get a good quality desktop or hobbyist level 3D printer for about the $500 range. You can go a little more, a little less, but it's become a very easy to acquire piece of equipment, which enables a lot of this desktop manufacturing pieces. So if we have the files and you have a 3D printer, you now have the ability to start producing components, which has become a very big part of our program. We've actually just in the process of working with a number of volunteers who really only do 3D printing for us. They're not even necessarily building the entire device anymore. And that's been a neat opportunity for us to help scale the work that we're doing. And again, the same idea, a number of our devices, we have about 218 of them in the library today. Say well over half of those designs now have come from the community, not from our internal team here. We're just helping curate those and making sure that they're on with all of the right information to be usable, makeable, and a nice quality for everybody on the other side. Now I've got a little video here, and I'm hoping we can get the sound to come through on this one, just a little different way of hearing what I just said there.
I'm getting no sound.
When you run the video, you have to select it like with sound. Then the sound will come.
Sorry, when I share the screen?
When you share screen, yeah, at the bottom it will say, yeah, run with sound. So
All right, let me get that. Oh, come here. Share screen to
with sound.
There it is. Found it. Thank you. Let's try that again. Oops.
Over 80% of people with disabilities use an assistive device, and 27% need at least one more, often citing cost as a barrier. Makers Making Change is helping bridge that gap. Our community of volunteers design and build assistive technologies you can download and request on our website. If you're looking for a solution, you can browse through our wide variety of devices, like simple bottle openers, assistive switches, and even more high-tech options like adapted toys and the lip sync. Once you've submitted a request, a volunteer maker will respond and collaborate with you to build the device. The best part of this volunteer platform is that you only pay for the cost of materials, no markups, and no inventory fees. Want to volunteer? We're open to makers of any skill level. Get involved in building and designing, participate at events, and help promote our mission in your community. Learn more and join the movement today at makersmakingchange.com.
Yeah, just like that one, it sort of puts all the pieces together in a nice way. So we're going to talk a little bit more now around some of the key concepts behind the DIY or do-it-yourself assistive technology movement that's out there, and what Makers Making Change is a big part of. And there's a few key points here that I'd like to highlight. Some of the reasons here is that one, cost is often a barrier, which is why we try to focus on some of the technologies like 3D printing, hobby electronics, and using volunteering as a mechanism to help build the devices for a much lower cost. Part of that then means is that we actually have to design the devices for makers, which is a little bit different than designing them for mass manufacturing. We're making choices that maybe devices aren't able to be quite as small, or they don't have as much power necessarily when we're producing them through a manufacturing line. But because we have volunteers who can build these devices anywhere, they're going to download the designs. We want to have a high degree of success for a wide range of skill levels, because we don't have that same kind of control over the manufacturing. And then a key part of that quality piece is documentation. It's both for the maker who's assembling the devices and testing those devices, but as well for our users. We like to make sure that we're not just putting projects on the internet like a lot of the other sites will do. We also want to make sure that people who want to use these devices have the information they need in order to learn how to properly operate the device, get the most out of it, and care for it over time. So that's sort of the three key ideas behind the way we presented our information on the Makers Making Change website. And now a couple of ideas here. One is we really focus hard making sure we involve users in our design process. That's a key part of every device that we put out on our website. We take our best effort to have people take the device, test it. We work with both clinicians and users to get feedback on how we might improve that design, or how we might make sure that it is exactly what users are looking for. The other side of this, because we are working with volunteers, there's a couple of things that we do like to avoid with Makers Making Change, and that has to do with any of the high-risk applications. So if you have, say, mobility control where you're driving perhaps a power chair, or you have emergency call buttons, and anything that would have to do with safety or critical systems, that's a spot where I don't want Makers Making Change devices to be applied, simply because, again, we don't have a quality control system that would be able to guarantee these devices to work at that level. What we're really focused on are devices that are going to help with the day-to-day activities. Provide digital access is a big one. And the real, the key idea behind our devices is that if something were to go wrong, it's inconvenient, we'll say, if the device doesn't work, as opposed to a risk or leaving you in a position that a person may be in some danger as a result of that failure. So that's one of the key elements to really think about as you go through these, again, volunteer built devices. And the other one is the powered manipulation of the body. So anything that would be like a exoskeleton, or, a hand grasping assist where we're applying power to the joints. It's something that really requires a lot of clinical oversight, something that's very important that is done correctly if we're going to do those kinds of tasks. And again, because we're not guaranteeing the manufacturing process in a very controlled format, we try to avoid that type of risk, because there are some negative side effects that could happen there. A couple of the other key things that we try to accomplish with our designs is iterating quickly. So if you have feedback, if you've used a device or you see an opportunity to improve something, we always love to hear that feedback. And we do try to make those changes as we can over time. We're always working at ways we can involve the community more to help us move more designs through the pipeline and out so that they're usable. And then common off-the-shelf parts is another term I like to use. And it's all the things so that they're easy to find. If we use a really rare piece of a technology, it's one, very expensive, but it can also be very hard to acquire. If you're a volunteer, maybe you're building one of these. A lot of these special pieces of technology you're buying in the hundreds or thousands at a time, which doesn't really help us as we're looking to build one at a time. And then finally, again, 3D prints in the mouth is an area that, it's the ability to clean the devices, and 3D prints are layer on layer. So there's little grooves and lines as you build up your components. So we've decided to stay away from 3D prints in the mouth for mouthpieces, just because they're a little more difficult to clean, and we wanted to make sure that is something that's always there and much easier to maintain over time.
I got a question for you for a sec.
Yeah, you bet, Richard.
If you would you consider anything that you can buy off of Amazon.ca, would you consider that to be a common off-the-shelf part?
Mostly, I would say. We have had cases with Amazon parts where, we try to make sure that the supplier has some history and they have, some stability on those components. We have had devices we've tried where we bought one and then all of a sudden we can't get any more of them. But that's the kind of idea. So Amazon, the Home Depots, the Ronas, those are the kinds of places, the common retail locations. That's right. We do a lot in the electronic side of things. There's two big suppliers that are available in kind of most countries around the world, which is Mouser Electronics and DigiKey Electronics. And so we try to focus on suppliers like that, where they have these shipping for sort of a retail level as opposed to selling to a business.
Okay, example, an ESP32. A module that electronic, I mean, you can buy them from eBay, Amazon, Mouser, doesn't matter. But it's really technical. Would you consider that to be a common off-the-shelf part? And
yes.
A lot of the stuff that I deal with is the ESP266s or 32s or electronic stuff. That's super high tech, but really easy to get and really cheap.
Yeah, and that's exactly the idea for us, is super easy to get and cheap. That's what we're looking for. Just because it's high tech, we don't rule it out. We use a variety of microcontrollers, a variety of components for joysticks and things like that. So we do have quite a number of electronic pieces across our various devices. But the idea is, I don't want you to have to hunt just to find that one supplier who will only sell you 100 at a time. But yeah, great question. Any other thoughts there, Richard?
Yeah, and I just forgot.
You can stop me again a little bit later on. I appreciate the
no.
questions. It's easier. Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if this is the correct time to ask, but will you be getting into any of the stuff from the NetClay project?
I won't be talking about the NetClay project. That's that's a Tetra Society runs the NetClay piece, which is a little bit different than us at Makers Making Change. We provided some feedback for them early on in the process, but it's not one of the devices that we currently have on our library directly, but it is something that we have seen and I think it's a good device. Yeah.
Okay.
But I won't be talking specifically about it though today on our side. All right, great questions. Anything else while we're paused here? Okay. So the next part here, which is a great segue, Richard, because it's pretty much open now. I'm going to go through a few different kinds of categories and show a few things that we have in our library. If you have questions, I just kind of wanted to give a bit of a sample so you have a sense of what we're looking at. So first of all, when you look at the Makers Making Change website, you're going to find your way into this place called Assistive Devices. And there's a variety of filters that you can find on the left-hand side and all the devices here down the center. And we're adjusting and adapting this library as we get new designs over time. So the goal here is that you have, a little bit of an awareness. I'm not going to go through all 200 and something devices today. We're going to just touch on a few of the types of categories so you have a sense of what you might be able to find. And again, if you have some questions about some ideas here, or you want to reach out even afterwards, we'll have some contact information here. You can reach out to me directly, of course. Always happy to talk a bit more about that. So first of all, we have the lip sync, which is really what started our program. Let's see if I've got this almost. I'll have to hold it by hand here. Okay, not quite the perfect demo here, but the new lip sync. The new lip sync is a mouth-operated mouse, and it's a digital access device. And the idea is it has a very low-force joystick at the front, and it's a sip and puff device into that straw. The original intent was to access mobile or like tablets or mobile phones. We've been able to expand that functionality over time to include gaming systems, as well as now it can operate as a mouse for a PC or a Mac, in addition to those functions. And with this version, we just launched this in March, I guess it was. And the real key feedback we've had from the community on this was kind of 2 points. One is the original lip sync had a very stiff, or not very stiff, it was a little bit stiff, and it was fatiguing over time for users to continue to use the device for more than an hour or two. And so we were able to reduce the force required to move this joystick by it was roughly about 180 grams of force on the original. This new one is about 40 grams of force. Hopefully I've remembered my numbers right. but it's that magnitude. And the other side was being able to change some settings and actually recalibrate the device independently. The original lip sync device, you were required to press a couple of buttons in order to get to that calibration function. And now we have this device here, which is controllable by the mouth operated mouse. And it's a little screen display here, and it allows you to go through some settings, trigger the calibration process, and do all of those things without having to press any of the buttons. We've left the buttons available so that you can also do it that way if that's your preference. But the idea behind this one is that it's just a much better, much easier to move version. And the other side we made a nice move forward with is reducing the amount of drift that happens over time. So that's when you just sit in a neutral space and the cursor will kind of go to the side on you. That was a challenge we had to calibrate out with the previous version. We've done a much cleaner job, completely different sensors inside. Feedback so far has been really good on the new version. So really happy with how this has gone out. Really proud of the team for being able to get this project done. But that's a neat one here. Let's see if I can kind of leave it in the screen here for you. There we go. Yeah, so that's one of the devices on our library, or you can request that or reach out to me directly if you're looking for lip sync or you know someone who might benefit. It would be happy to have a conversation. And those devices are roughly about $250 for a lip sync device. Comparable devices would be considered around the quad stick, which starts at about 900, and then there's a couple other devices, commercial versions that are in about the $1,500 range. Now, again, you're not going to use our lip sync as a way to drive a power chair, for example, but for gaming on Xbox, surfing the internet, working with documents on your PC or Mac, or accessing your tablet or smartphone, it's a very functional device. Works quite well. And if you're curious, I'm not sure if you know Ian. Ian Price is one of our beta testers. He's always loved working with us, and another good partner of our program. I had a good story written up about Ian's first use and his participation in helping us develop the lip sync to the state. And he's a pretty happy camper these days with it, and he's using it every day. So you can check out our website on our news stories. You'll see that one. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
So presumably the straw is not 3D printed.
That's correct. So what we've done with the straw, we're still working on finding a much more easy to build version, but it's a piece of silicone tubing today that we use over a dental straw for a little bit more rigidity.
Okay. And the other question is that a maker buildable device? It is.
Yeah, it's all. So we have the instructions. We call it one of our more intermediate to advanced projects. But compared to the original lip sync, I would say it's easier than it was. And
excuse me, do you need more than a 3D printer to make it?
Yes, you do. Yeah. So this particular project would require a 3D printer for all the housings, all the plastic parts that are on the outside, and then soldering iron, and some common hand tools for like screwdrivers and those kind of things. But the soldering iron's the big one. We have a couple of PCBs on the inside that we put components in, and we're required to solder through that. And we have all the instructions around that on our website as well. How to build, how to go through each of the steps to build these devices. And we've had a couple successful volunteer makes now. We've built, I think we did 10 with the Victoria Makerspace just like last week. And then we had another number built, I'm trying to think, a couple months ago now. We had a group of makers come in and build it with us. Again, I wouldn't recommend it as your very first time soldering project, but if you've got a little bit of experience with soldering, then that's one that you can be quite successful with.
So you have custom-made PC boards inside?
For this particular project, we do. We try to avoid it. We try to avoid those as much as we can, but often it becomes almost impossible to make the device successfully. But we do have instructions on how to get those PCBs. And if, again, in Canada, we also have some here at our office. So if you're looking for those kind of parts, we can help you with that as well. But we work with, go ahead.
No surface mount components to go on circuit boards? Or?
I don't think we have any surface mount. We did have one surface mount or on the previous version, but I think we were able to get rid of that on this one. Again, we really do try to focus on the through-hole soldering as our focus point, because it is a bit easier to be successful with, without having a lot of experience in soldering. And I'm pretty sure at the end there isn't any surface mount in this new version. Great questions. You're putting me to task today, Richard. I like it. All right, how about we move along here to go to the next category here. Any other questions before I move on? Any last questions about the lip sync before we move to the next one? Okay. Switch adapted toys. This is another area that is probably the most popular, or one of the most popular parts or devices that that we have go through our website and through our community. We have quite a number of different versions of them. That's one of my favorite here. This little guy, the my pal. And the way they work is whoops, there we are. We'll kind of get right in there. And so these little jacks, what we've done is gone into the standard controller. So it has its normal little buttons here. And they bark and they move. And the idea then is we don't want people to have to go and buy necessarily commercially made adapted toys. We help our volunteers, we train our volunteers into how to open up these devices and then rewire them so that they can be switch adapted. And when we do that, get my little switch here. So we can take our switch. This is not quite as perfect video as I had hoped. There we go. My fault for not getting the camera quite perfect. So we have our assistive switch, and we're going to plug it into one of the ports. Oh, and then now we have the button, and we have an adapted button that we can press. And you can probably hear the dog barking through my mic nice and loud. I'll try not to, these things can really get going. But that's the idea. So these switch adapted toys are really a cost-effective way for a lot of clinicians and families to sort of begin the journey of switch adapting their devices or learning that switch scanning, really first step towards digital access and the switch scanning methods. Oftentimes, we're able to get a switch and a toy to a family for $25 to $30. And that's a big difference when often, some of these commercially adapted toys start at about the $100 to $150 range. Just means that some families just don't simply have access, which again goes back to that core mission that we have with Makers Making Change, which is removing those barriers or making them accessible from a financial side. Lots of different things. These are probably one of the more fun events that we run as well. So we will go out with communities and community events and run these toy hacks with high schools or libraries. Lots of companies will also bring us in to do team building events where we teach everybody how to solder and break open a toy and have fun for a day. There's something I've always found really satisfying about unpacking a toy and taking apart the electronics. So it's a fun activity to do as well. But yeah, this is one area that I think is probably the most active, and we have the most demand for from our community anyway. Basically, as many as we can make, we can get out into the community is kind of the feedback we've been getting. Okay, I'll keep moving along here. Switches is the next area. Lots of different types of switches. We have various types of contact and even some non-contact options, big switches and small switches. I've got just a couple of here. We've got sort of this general size, which is, kind of that 66 centimeters across button size. We're currently working on a new one, which I'm cautiously optimistic will be about twice that big of surface area. It's a little bit harder the bigger they get. But we have that working right now. We've got some small that are just about the size of your finger as well, various different versions of these smaller size switches. And they're all, again, volunteer made. And I'm going to say roughly, depending on the switch and the components inside of it, for some of the very simple switches could be in that $5 to $10 range per switch. We also have some of the higher tech versions, which are, there's one which uses a light sensor so that it's completely non-contact. And that one is, I think, in about the $35, $40 range. But that was sort of the idea there. And that's just a wide range of ideas and anything that we can locate. And it's all built on that 3.5 millimeter switch jack, which is the common switch size for common jack size, for assistive switches. So you can use them with any other interfaces you may already be using a switch with. I think of what other, that's good. Well, we can keep moving along here. Any thoughts there on switches? Okay, joysticks. This is another relatively new area for us. We have, through the last year, worked on a series of different joysticks that we've made available on our website. And we have, the idea here again, maker made 3D printed components for the housings and the toppers and things. Again, parts you can order from any of the common vendors as we build these devices out. And one of the neat things is we have a variety of different types of joysticks. Everything from this like touchpad style to this one here, the Oak is the one I'm holding in front of you here. It's got this little wing topper on it, so you can rest on it in a few different ways. We also make a variety of different types of toppers. So this is the same joystick, and this one instead has a concave cup in it, which can be easier if you want to rest something that fits into that space a little bit better. So we have a wide range of different options just for the topper itself. And that's really been helpful. Again, feedback from our community has helped us identify the types of toppers to use. And we also have some that are much smaller range of motion, like this little spruce joystick on the side here. So you can see the Oak, you have to move it quite a long ways in order to make the motion work, which is great for some users. And other folks would like something that moves a lot smaller. And we even have another version of this, which is even smaller, moves only about 2 to 3 millimeters across the face. So we have an even lower distance if that's what's required for that case. All of these joysticks are, cost of components, we're going to be in that $40 to $65 range roughly by the time we're all done. Some of the components, there's not really a lot going on in some of these. We buy as many of the components as we can in a pre-manufactured state. So you can buy a lot of the joysticks from places like DigiKey, for example, and we just package them up and put the wires on them with our volunteers to make them work and plug them in. Now, the neat thing about that, they work with a lot of the other interfaces that are out there already. So the big one for us is we have, of course, I didn't grab it, we have developed our own switch interface as well, which is this forest right here in the middle. And the idea behind it is you can plug a joystick plus up to 3 switches in it, and it has a couple of modes. And the idea behind that is we wanted these joysticks to be useful as easily as possible with either as a mouse, as an alternative mouse, or be able to go through to for gaming. So you could have enough buttons and a joystick to be able to play some relatively basic games. That's with that particular case. Now they also plug into the Xbox Adaptive Controller, which is a really nice piece of hardware that Microsoft has built and is designed to take a gaming controller and be able to make every input a 3.5 millimeter jack. So we can plug our joysticks in, we can actually plug our lip sync into that Xbox as well, and use that as a joystick. And then we have a button, as many different buttons as we want to play those games. So it's really important that we participate in the sort of the ecosystem of devices that are all working together to provide increased access and being able to put those switch inputs in the locations that work best for people. Pardon me.
I do have a question about switches for gaming.
Yeah.
Some of the switches that I've used have some lag time associated. Is that something you guys have paid close attention to? If you go through a bunch of stages converting to USB from I2C or something like that, you can have a lag time. And if somebody is hitting a pinball switch or something like that, you don't want to have any lag time. Yeah,
I hear you. We do care about the lag time for sure, especially as it goes to the gaming. That was one of the key areas that was brought forward to us, making sure that exactly that doesn't happen. You don't want to have the switch and then the game has moved on by the time you do anything. So the switches work, the lag on the switches is very low, especially when working through the Xbox Adaptive Controller. I'd say that's kind of the best case scenario. But the Forest Hub that we've put together as well from a gaming perspective, the latency on it is also very, very low in that same sort of range. We wanted to make sure for exactly that case that we didn't have lag. Now, we were working on a project which I guess technically we're still working on it, was a way to convert a signal from a Bluetooth drive control for a power chair under its auxiliary mode as a way to be a gaming joystick for going into different systems. We ran into some pretty big issues there with that lag idea or the latency. just we ran into a couple other issues because all the software to make that happen ended up being proprietary, and a lot of folks we were having trouble getting inside the box, we'll say, to make it a really true sort of maker friendly kind of project. Still working on it, but we've got a couple of ideas there. But that gaming speed and trying to work with that joystick, we didn't get a really good performance out of it. It became choppy. It didn't want to work exactly in the smooth way that we're getting out of something like this type of joystick, where we can plug it directly into one of these interfaces. That Bluetooth connection and then conversion to USB, like you're talking about, we just had too many things in the stack to make it really useful as a gaming device. So yeah, really great question.
Yeah, I found everything that I've tried to do with Bluetooth for audio or controls, Bluetooth is just lag.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and we're still working on that one. I think we certainly haven't solved it. We'll put it that way. If you have ideas, though, I mean, that would be we're all ears.
Yeah, find an alternative RF controller.
Yeah,
something that doesn't involve Bluetooth. 100 milliseconds is going to kill your game.
Yeah, that's what we found. We were hitting about I think we got it as low as like 126, 130, 140, somewhere in there. But yeah, we couldn't get it. That was kind of where we got stuck. And it was the stack of devices that we couldn't get any lower. Awesome. Love the questions today. Thank you, Richard. This is making it fun for me today. Another big category we have is something we call low-tech AT. These are low-tech only in the sense that there's no electronics or other types of software type of connections. These are simple 3D print and use devices is another term I like to say. So this one is a bottle opener. So you can, if you have a bottle, you can take your bottle opener and you can put it over the top there, and it just gives you that little bit more grip strength. So if you have a hard time getting your fingers over a bottle topper. The bag carrier here, this is another favorite of a lot of folks. We get asked for these all the time, and this is a very simple device, just gives you a little bit bigger handle, and then you can hang your groceries off the hooks, or really anything that you want to carry off those hooks. And these are kind of a neat device as well. Same with the bottle opener, is that we can, through our systems, we have a variety of different sizes available, plus the model for the maker is possible for them to resize it specifically for a given user. So it's sort of the available as it is very quickly, but with a little bit of extra work, we can actually customize it even before we get these made. So again, same thing. We have some on the shelf, but in the context of it, we can actually customize quite easily some of these types of devices. Another one I like to highlight, it's not on the screen here, is our key opener. This is one of the early devices, I think it's been in our library almost from the beginning. And this is just a really nice way to put a key into a piece of 3D printed parts. It's got the bolt on it. And then all of a sudden you have a key that has a handle on it. It becomes a one-handed key and door opener at the same time. This is another device that's become quite popular over the years. And we always have these on hand in our inventory, just because we get asked for them so often. It's a really handy device. We have a number of different writing aids. We've got a few like these devices that you see on the screen up here. We also have very cuff style. Again, this is one where, the idea you can put the cuff over the hand and being able to use your pen that way. We have a number of different cuff style devices for utensils, forks, those kind of ideas. And then obviously the writing device here. And then another option is the pen ball, which is this one right here, another very popular one in our library. And again, a number of different sizes that allows small. We have bigger than this. It just allows a much more comfortable grip over that surface, so you don't have to have the very close pinch and grasp strength. It just allows just a little bit different. This has been popular across quite a wide range of our users, actually, from some very young folks to older folks as well, who maybe have a little bit more arthritis and are looking for that little bit less, less pinch strength.
And then the nail clipper, which I don't see on there.
Yeah, it's almost like I planted you today, Richard. This is fantastic.
Well, I've been wanting to make that thing for years now, and I've never found it easy enough to find the design.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that's going to be my next question: is where do we find all these things?
That's coming soon. We'll be hitting that here shortly. But yeah, so this is another device. We actually have two types of nail clippers now in our library. This is one of the earlier ones. It works really well. The idea behind it is you can put it on a surface and then you can lay your forearm across it. So you're not trying to pinch those nail clippers. It holds everything in place for you. On top of a tabletop works really well. The other style we had recently added is just sort of, it's similar, but it's more of a spring motion kind of note to self, make sure you just bring everything. It's another option for putting a nail clipper in, just looks and works slightly differently, a little bit less printing time on that one, which is why I actually like that one too, is just made a little bit quicker to build. And then, yeah, lots of other things out there. I'm not going to cover everything all at once here. So we've talked a number of pieces here, and let me just check on my time here. Oh, yeah, we're doing good. We've talked about that. So a lot of other things. While we have joysticks, we actually have a lot of other gaming style adaptations as well. So this one here, we have a lot of these kind of clip-on 3D printed devices, which do everything from just helping move those top buttons to a location that's easier to get to if you have a hard time reaching the back of the controller, all the way to a full setup that can transfer from one side to the other. So there's you can do one-handed gaming right from the standard controller, all in one place. And out to some of these other ideas, like this is one that's kind of neat. This is a switch latch device, that little thing in the corner here. And what this does is you can plug a switch into it, and then you take a cord plugging it on the other side, and it converts just that momentary switch, and you can press it once and it's going to hold that switch down for you. So if you want to do something and have it hold down for a while, it's going to stay that way until you touch the switch again, and then it's going to open that circuit again for you, which is seems really simple, but at the same time, it's a clever little design, and allows for, again, expanding pretty easily that function of a switch to maybe you're playing a game, you want to hold the gas pedal down of a car, you can press that, and then you can use your other switches while you're driving that vehicle on your game.
Quick key question on that one. The little red box is where the smart stuff happens. Where do you get the power for that? Is it a latching relay or?
Yeah, it's a latching relay. It's battery powered, that particular device, and that it's a fairly simple circuit. So the batteries do last a fair amount of time, obviously depending how much you're playing. But the idea is it closes the latch and uses as little power as possible while it's in that state, and then use a bit of power to open that latch again. That's been it's relatively new. We've had a few of them go out and pretty good responses, but I think we're still looking for any kind of feedback we can get on that as well. So if you're interested at all, I'd be happy to send one your way if you think you'd like to try that, or anybody really. That's just reach out and let us know. Okay, so you're getting to your other question here, Richard. How do we get stuff? And that's the real core here to close us off for today. The process that we work with, it's the volunteer style request process. So we're not quite a store, which I think is where people get stuck a little bit. Is what we're doing is through our library, we're creating a system where you can say, hey, I'd like to get this device. And then we have our volunteers on the other side saying, hey, I know how to make that, and I'm nearby and I can do that for you. And it's a bit of a matchmaking service where we connect, those the makers and the users together in order to create that device and get that delivered. We also have, if you're having a hard time or something like that, I'll save that slide coming up. So how do we do that? We have a request a device feature on our webpage. So you navigate into your assistive devices, you'd find the joystick that you're looking for. And then there's kind of the three things you need to do. You have to be logged in. So that's a first important part. We don't have any sort of way to make this happen unless we know a little bit more about you. And then you click this big button here that's called Request a Maker. And as soon as you do that, it's going to ask you a couple of questions, and then it's going to put out your request to our community online. And both our general volunteer community will monitor that. We also have our various team members inside Makers Making Change keeping an eye on that list for us as well. We're limited to operating within Canada, so that's where our team is. We will try to do our very best to work and make sure those get picked up within Canada, and then outside that, so we have a lot of requests happening in the US as well. But we have a lot of volunteers down there who just pick those up and deliver those over time. But that's something that us as Neil Squire and our organization, we don't get to cross that border. So in case you're working with some friends of yours who are in that south of the border area there, that's one of the limitations. But the volunteer community is still active, and it is a good way to work through that. A couple of things that we hear often, both sides. This is for the makers as well as the users. But when you're in the process, there's a couple of times there's a way to communicate back and forth. You'll get some emails from us talking about it, but the maker may have some questions they want to ask, and just trying to be responsive as you can as you go through that process. And then the other piece here, because we are working with volunteers, all we ask is that people are paying for the cost of materials, and the volunteers are donating their time in that assembly process. So we don't want the makers to be, out of pocket unless that's what they're choosing to do. But that is the idea. We're trying to remove as much of that cost as possible. So you're not paying for labor, you're not paying for all of those other pieces that are typically part of building a product. And if you have any questions or you want to figure out another way to get a hold of us, please do. You can check out our contact us page on the website. You can always send an email to info@makersmakingchange.com. And generally, if you can find the Neil Squire website or the Makers Making Change website, we all talk to each other. So you'll find the right person one way or the other by reaching out to either side of the organization there. And finally, before we close it up here today, I just want to highlight that we're having our 40th anniversary this spring. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Just want to let everybody know it's open to anyone. Everyone's welcome to join us this Friday afternoon. We're having a barbecue. We're doing some tours of the space as well. Makers Making Change, as well as the other Neil Squire programs in our Burnaby office here. And the only thing we ask is that you register now, and I will pop that into the chat here for everybody. There you go. So if you're interested in coming on out, please register. There's no cost to it. And it's we're just happy to have everybody come by and share in the celebration with us for 40 years of working in the space and started here in Burnaby. So yeah, pretty excited for that one. I'll be working the grill if you're looking to talk to me. Outside of that, that really wraps me up for today. Any other questions before we close it up?
Is this, this is recorded, so will it be posted on a website somewhere, YouTube?
Yeah, it is on YouTube and Facebook channel.
Thanks.
That's me done, Kosar. If you're looking for anything else, let me know.
Okay, no questions. Okay, so that was really nice. And I'll see you guys next week for a different program.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.